Hi everyone, I'm Mr. One Compiler. Welcome to my channel. Today, I want to share something that was a big challenge for me, but also a huge learning experience: authentication and authorization in APIs. When I first started learning about these concepts, I was completely lost. Words like JWT, tokens, and authentication felt like a whole new language, and I didn't understand any of it. It felt overwhelming and frustrating, to be honest. I tried watching videos, reading tutorials, and even following step-by-step guides to implement JWT bearer tokens in my projects. But still, it didn't really click for me. I felt like I was just copying code without actually understanding how it worked. So, I decided to take a different approach. Instead of just following tutorials, I created my own project from scratch to really learn these concepts. I focused on JWT, access tokens, and refresh tokens. And guess what? It worked! The project not only helped me understand how authentication and authorization work, but I also finally grasped how to use tokens properly. So, let's dive into the project and see how everything works. First, we have the models folder, which contains two subfolders, DTOs and entities. In the entities folder, we have two classes, employee and department. These are used with Entity Framework to define the structure of our database tables. And then we have the DTOs folder. This is used to make transferring data between layers much easier. Inside, we have subfolders, Department DTOs, Employee DTOs, and Tokens DTOs. Each of these folders contains specific DTO classes for their respective functionalities. And we have the Services folder, which contains service classes and their corresponding interfaces. These interfaces are used to implement dependency injection, making the code more modular and testable. We have services for departments, employees, and tokens, organized into separate folders for better structure. Here, we have the employee entity code. Most of the properties are nullable to make it easier to insert data, since I didn't focus too much on validation details. We have a username and a hash password property, so passwords are stored securely as hashes instead of plain text. There's also a role property, with a default value set to employee. The most important properties here are the refresh token and refresh token expiry time, which are used for refreshing tokens when they expire, and for storing the current refresh token. Finally, we have the department and department ID properties, which allow us to navigate and link this entity to its related department. This is the department entity. It has an ID as the primary key, a name with a default value, an optional description, and a collection of employees to link it with related employees. Application DB context connects the app to the database with DB set for employees and departments. It defines a relationship where an employee belongs to a department, and a department can have many employees, with restricted delete behavior. This is the iEmployee service interface, which defines the main operations for managing employees. It includes methods for registering, signing in, updating, deleting, refreshing tokens, and retrieving employees by ID or as a list. If you'd like to see the full implementation of employee service, you can check the source code on my GitHub. The link is in the description. This is the iDepartment service interface, which defines operations for managing departments. It includes methods for getting all departments, retrieving a department by ID, creating, updating, and deleting a department. This is the iToken service interface, which defines methods for token generation. It includes generate access token for creating an access token based on an employee and generate refresh token for creating a refresh token. This is the employee controller, which handles API requests for employee-related operations. It uses the authorize attribute to restrict access to users with roles like employee, admin, or manager. The controller is routed with API/employee. It also uses dependency injection to inject the iEmployee service, making the code modular and easier to test. The register and login endpoints in employee controller handle authentication. Both are marked with allow anonymous, allowing access without authentication. Register creates a new user and returns tokens if successful, while login authenticates a user and also returns tokens. The department controller handles API requests for managing departments. It uses the authorize attribute to restrict access to users with admin or manager roles. The controller is routed with API/department and uses dependency injection to inject the iDepartment service. Both the employee and department controllers include other endpoints for all CRUD operations. These endpoints are straightforward, so I won't explain them in detail in this video. However, you can check out the full code on my GitHub, the link is in the description. In the program.cs file, we configure dependency injection for our services, so they can be used throughout the application. We inject the iEmployee service with employee service, iDepartment service with department service, and iToken service with token service. We also configure the application DB context to use SQL Server with a connection string from the configuration. This configures JWT authentication, setting up token validation for issuer, audience, lifetime, and signing key. It also ensures precise token expiration and returns a 401 unauthorized for authentication failures. This is the JWT configuration in the app settings file. It includes the secret key for signing tokens, the issuer and audience for validating tokens, and the expiration times, 1 minute for access tokens and 7 days for refresh tokens. Let's start the execution. First, we'll try the register endpoint. The path is API/employee/register. We'll insert a username, Mr.1Compiler, and the password, ABC. The password is super strong, no one will ever guess it, right? The name is Eamon, that's my name. The role is manager, of course, and the department ID is 1, which is the IT department. Now, let's click Send. As you can see, the endpoint returns both the access token and the refresh token. Now, let's check the database. Click the refresh button, and as you can see, the new user, Mr.1Compiler, is registered. All the information we provided during registration is here. Next, let's try the login endpoint. The path is API/employee/login. We'll use the username Mr.1Compiler and the password ABC. As you can see, it returns a new access token and refresh token. Let's go ahead and copy the access token. Let's try the get endpoint. We'll start by using an ID of 19. But we need to provide the access token that we copied earlier in the headers under authorization. Paste it. Click Send, and as you can see, it returns a bad request because there's no employee with ID 19. Now, let's change the ID to 20, click Send again, and this time it returns complete information about the employee. Finally, let's try the Get All endpoint. Click Send, and it returns all employees, but in this case, we only have one employee. Let's enter another employee, but this time with a different role. The username is Alex, and the password is also ABC. The name is Alex. The role is employee. And the department ID is 2. Send. Now, let's log in with Alex. Use the username Alex and the password ABC. Send, and let's copy the access token. In the Get All endpoint, let me paste the access token in authorization in the header. Send. It returns 403 forbidden, which means this user is not allowed to access this endpoint. Let me access the Get with ID 20 endpoint. Send. It is also forbidden. Let's try the Delete endpoint. Paste the access token. Send. It is also forbidden. Let me sign in with Mr.1Compiler again and copy the access token. Paste the new access token. I want the Get All endpoint. Send. And these are all the employees. Let me go to the Delete endpoint. Paste the access token. Delete the employee with ID 15. Bad request, there is no employee with this ID. I'll change it to 22. Send. And the employee was deleted successfully. Now we have the update endpoint. If I send the request immediately, it will return 401 unauthorized because the access token has expired. Let me go to the login endpoint, sign in again, and copy the new access token. Paste the new access token. Send. Now it is a bad request. I have been authorized, but the error is because I didn't enter an existing username. Let me update with the username Alex, password AAA, name Alex22, role admin, and department ID 1. Send. Updated successfully. In Department Controller, Get All endpoint, it shows all the departments and their information. Now with the Create endpoint, let me get a new access token. Headers. Authorization. Bearer. Paste the token. Name HR, description HR Dep. Created successfully. Let me go back to the Get All endpoint. Provide the new token. Send. And this is the new HR department. This is the end. I skipped some parts that I felt were not necessary and focused on the main points. Thank you for watching.